Bad ideas get pulverized, and the truth will set you free. Trento Vision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom at trentovision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and trentovision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
Okay, do I have any Baby Ruth?
You got all the nougat off your face there? Okay, just shoving a candy bar down your pie hole?
We violate every rule of video etiquette. Hey, look.
Well, come on, 3 hours.
Don't start
Give me a
picking your
break.
nose now, okay? All right.
No, I think we do that too. Picking our ears, our noses. For the listening audience, there's a camera rolling while we're on the break.
While we're having our Snickers bars.
And you need energy food. So we have some sort of
We
garbage.
have a bag of snacks. Oh, come on. I'm sorry.
But there is a candy machine in the worldwide headquarters of Beasley Broadcasting
Corporation, right?
And we usually don't have the change, but we had dollar bills today, and I got a Baby Ruth bar.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
And a Baby Ruth bar goes all over your face. It goes every place. On my teeth, I'm doing this. Then we forget. There's like, you can't hear us.
Yeah. But then we get emails saying, okay, saw you picking your teeth, putting on your lip gloss.
So, but that's all part of the fun.
But that's all part of the glamour.
And you guys wonder why I like being behind the camera. God.
Oy vey, as they say. Well, it's 6 minutes past the hour, and a little bit Admiral Ace Lyons is going to join with us. He's got an amazing curricula vitae, amazing history of his service to the United States of America. And he is retired, and he is as sharp as you could imagine. He's in his 80s, and he's kicking butt on national security issues because he's one of these guys that have been there, done that. So he's going to join us in a little bit. Then a little later in the show, we'll have...
and he's one of your co-authors there, Tom.
Yeah,
he's with Team B2 co-author, and he is actually a
colleague on that end.
Yes.
Is this a good time to do a commercial for yourself?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Oh, we don't even do commercials for... here's what we're going to probably do after the election. We're going to be expanding the show and... probably go to commercial time. We're sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but somebody's got to pay the bills. And so we're going to be looking for advertisers out there who want to advertise on the show. We'll give you all the information that's necessary. But if you like what we do, and we're going to, regardless of who wins, we're going to be dealing with national security issues. We have a very specific, unique niche. We've got contacts with Batman and Robin and everybody else you could imagine, crime fighters and global American heroes. So we're gonna bring you this information and bring it in a unique, dynamic way, do investigative reporting. It's going to be a fabulous show, but we need sponsors to keep it on the air.
So we can keep ourselves in Snickers
and
bars.
for all you don't realize, we did keep Bush's feet to the fire on his responsibility in the second term.
Oh,
and so
absolutely.
it's not just, this is not strictly a partisan, this is national
it's a good
security.
point.
No. This is for the country, and that's bipartisan.
And the
So
reason-
if you're a good Democrat, then we support you, and if you're a good Republican,
And we
we
do-
support you, and if you're a bad Republican, we don't, and we call you out on it.
And we've actually supported, a few Democrats, because typically
On national security
On
issues.
national security issues, absolutely.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay.
Can't think of who they are right now, but
I know.
Well, Tony Vella recently, when he came out and spoke up in New York.
Tell everybody what that was about.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. That was just recently up in New York City, and we're during a Muslim Day parade, and during you know what, when you say this stuff, it's almost like you can't believe it.
It sounds crazy.
It sounds crazy. Sounds wacko. Okay, this is a Muslim Day parade.
Keep your eye on
the New York City cops are marching down the Muslims in front of full band. All the
waving
pomp,
the Al-Qaeda flag.
and then all the pomp and circumstance. And then behind it, here comes the Al-Qaeda flag wave, and you're going, "What the heck is this all about?" And then next thing, wave after wave. Then they start speaking on stage. They have the grand marshals up there, and they're talking about suppressing the freedom of speech and all this other stuff, and
As a good thing.
and
Yes.
it's just one thing after another, and finally, a Democrat senator, a state senator,
Yeah.
hears this, who's been totally pro. He's one of the grand marshals, got a grand marshal sash on him. He marched down the street, and he actually got fed up and said, "I'm hearing what you guys are saying, but you guys are crazy, off the chart wacko," and left. And and we went up and talked to him afterwards, and he says, what they were saying up there was just not what I thought it was going to be. And so we had to stand up for him. He's a Democrat. But he got sucked in, by the Muslims, during their Al Qaeda flag waving, kill the Jews type of rhetoric, and he just had enough.
Yeah, and we videotaped that, right, Mark?
We videotaped it.
We videotaped that. I ran.
Would you have 250,000 hits on that or something?
Yeah,
Some
and the
crazy
guys were up there doing. It was so bad. The imam up there was doing Nazi
He was
salutes.
doing Heil Hitlers and saying Islam,
and they were
Yeah.
coming back, and it looked just like a Hitler rally. Really.
What we're talking about, folks, is 11 minutes past 5 on the East Coast. This is Tom Trento, your host, TrentoVision.tv. On the simulcast radio side, WNN 1470 out of Boca Raton, 50,000 watts from Miami, almost all the way up to North Miami, almost to Orlando. So what we're talking about now was an event we went to, Muslim Day in September in New York, the Muslim Day Parade, and where these moderate Muslim leaders just went bonkers and started. It was right after
It was right after 9/11.
and Benghazi, all of that.
It's when the UN was meeting, right?
Yeah, during all of that, and they were riled up as a result of the attacks in Cairo, the attacks in Tripoli, in Benghazi, and other areas, and it really underscored the fact that there's an Arab street in the United States of America. But the center of attention in that month of September was a couple of key areas in the Middle East, one in particular, Egypt, and one that's come under tremendous amount of scrutiny. If you can shut that mic off. One that came under a tremendous amount of scrutiny over the past couple of weeks. This area that we now know as Benghazi. No one knew about this, but now Benghazi's become a household name, at least for those of us who are dealing with national security issues. And we are privileged to have on the line with us. We'd love to have him in the studio, but we couldn't get the Trento Vision jet up.
The G4's down again?
Yeah, the G4 is down, Admiral, so we couldn't pick you up in the jet, so we have to have you on phone. Admiral James Ace Lyons, welcome to Trento Vision. How are you, sir?
That's fine, Tom, and nice to be talking to you.
Yes, you have been making the rounds lately, haven't you?
Yeah, somewhat.
Well, let's do a couple of things, because you are speaking to a radio audience in South Florida, one of the key demographics for this little race that we got going on that's going to be determined tomorrow. And we're simulcasting on the internet, shooting the picture and your words out all over, and we'll probably push it out tomorrow. Why don't you establish a little bit about your background? I've been teasing the folks a little bit about your background, but give us 30 seconds or so on who you are, and then we'll get into what's going on right now.
Okay, I'm the former Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Before that, I was the Deputy Think of Naval Operations. I was the U.S. military rep to the United Nations. I was commander of 2nd Fleet, commander of the NATO Striking Fleet, and commander of Joint Task Force 120. Before that, I was the Logistic Force commander for the 7th Fleet. And before that, I was the director of political and military affairs for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I was in that position when President Carter failed to react to the Iranian takeover of our embassy in Tehran in November 1979.
Yeah, so you have been at unique moments in history
So
where
he's a nobody. So he
he's
doesn't
a
know what
nobody. Yeah,
Another underachiever
Another
on
underachiever,
TrentoVision.tv.
Admiral, with me in the studio, I have a couple of teammates here. CJ, say hello to the Admiral.
Hi,
Hi,
I'm overwhelmed.
Hey, from an ex-squid, I salute you, sir.
And that was Mark Campbell. He's a former Navy guy, so he said hello.
Yeah, well, he's got good credentials.
Yes. I want to establish a couple of points of commonality between you and I, and then we'll get into the material. We told the audience a bit earlier that we are both on the Team B2 team that Frank Gaffney put together regarding the book Sharia, the Threat to America.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you for your great work on that. My job was to write the action part, what we would do with the analysis we have. And when I wrote it, and we were sitting down with Christine and Claire and a few others, we realized, you know what? We don't want to tell the bad guys the game plan, so we never published the action plan, but we're doing it, rest assured, right?
Yeah. Indeed we are.
Yep.
Hopefully, I believe the message is slowly getting out.
It really, really is. But there's another point of interest in where our backgrounds have crossed paths with a common friend, common individual. You were instrumental in putting Red Cell together, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to back in 1996 to go back to Vietnam with Dick Marcinko for about 2 weeks. Marcinko, Jim Watson, a few of these guys, and run around in the Mekong Delta for a while. And for those of you who don't know what Red Cell, well, I'll let the Admiral tell you what Red Cell is, but this is fascinating. Why don't you tell everybody what that's all about?
Well, what I formulated Red Cell after the Marine Barracks bombing blow up in Beirut in October 23rd, 1983. And I knew we were terribly vulnerable throughout our facilities, on board ships, and so on. So the Red Cell consisted of all former SEAL Team 6 counter-terrorist personnel. And my instructions to them were you are going to act, think, plan, and operate like terrorists. And you are going to identify our vulnerabilities and identify what we had to do to plug those holes. And I have to tell you, the first exercise we ran with the Red Cell was the USS Cole scenario.
Wow.
Oh,
And
my
we
goodness.
knew then that you had to have an armed boat in the water, and you couldn't let any boat approach the ship until you had thoroughly investigated it. Consequently, that lesson was not learned very well, certainly not by our embassy personnel in Yemen at the time.
And the Dick Marcinko connection, Dick.
Dick, I put him in charge of the Red Cell, and we had a separate budget and everything like that for them. And you couldn't tell them they all had long hair and beards, and they dressed in appropriate attire and so on. I mean, it was a very realistic team, and we. I'm sorry to say, every exercise we ran was successful. We videotape recorded everything we did because I knew that Marine sentry was not going to say, these guys got behind me and stole a nuclear weapon, which we were able to do. But like Warner Wolf, roll the tape, and there it was.
Yeah, and some of the stuff is amazing. Some of the video where they're, in places they shouldn't be, maybe duct taping somebody up that shouldn't be duct taped up, whatever. But Dick Marcinko who was a SEAL that fought, legendary SEAL, fought in the Vietnam War, then went on to form SEAL Team 6, which there was just East Coast, West Coast 1 and 2. He formed SEAL Team 6 sort of as a diversionary number. And then through that, then the Admiral saw what he was doing and said, Dick, we need you over here to attack, if you will, ourselves to determine our capabilities. And some of your peers did not like what you guys were doing, did they?
No, we were not. I would say we were not politically correct. However, Tom, let me say this. Everything we did and what we were going to do to an installation or facility was sent in advance to that commander, so he knew exactly what we were going to do, and he knew the approximate time window when we were going to do it.
Wow.
And even though we told him, look, none of this is going to be reflected in your report of fitness, that's not the objective. The objective here is to be able to defeat any planned terrorist act. And no matter how many times we told them that, it was very difficult to get the message across.
Let me ask you, now this is the early 90s when you put these guys together, right?
No, 80, after the Marine
Oh,
Barracks.
83, that's right, 83.
83.
Okay, for the sake of the audience, we have on a legendary American, Admiral Ace Lyons, the former commander of the Pacific Fleet. That's pretty big. You had like 250,000 people under your command, correct?
Correct.
And how many ships?
250,000.
How many ships?
255 ships, 2,600 aircraft, 7 carriers, 55 shore facilities, and a budget of about $6 billion.
He could have started a war on his own.
Yeah, you could have started your own country, you know. But I want to get back to Red Cell because Red Cell is so critical. After '83, the idea was to use the top Tier 1 operators, SEAL Team 6. I think Dick put there was one guy from I think Force Recon that was involved too. About 20 guys, right? Is it something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Now, your first mission. Were you involved in the planning? Did you tell these guys, here's what I want you to do? Were you involved at that level, or
Well, I oversaw, some they would come up with ideas, and I'd come up with ideas, and we'd put it together. We'd write it up. We'd get it approved at the Secretary of the Navy level.
Okay.
So none of this was done in a backroom closet behind any of the leadership's noses or anything like that. It was all done in the open.
So that makes it even more
disturbing. It really
more disturbing for
does.
sure. Now, do you remember where you were when you got one of the first calls that they call you up? They go, Admiral, guess what? We're in. I mean, do you remember that moment?
They didn't do that. I did not keep direct day-to-day communications with them when they were doing the exercise. We set the exercise. They were given their instructions, and they were professionals, and I had the confidence that they would operate within those bounds. But I did do one thing, which I have to tell you, Tom.
Okay.
I did put a lawyer with them on all of their exercises because, they were sort of enthusiastic guys. And if somebody thought they were going to stand up to them, at some point the lawyer was there to say, okay, fellas.
It's just a game.
Don't
Just a
cross
game.
that line.
Yeah, exactly.
And the guy that relieved me as the deputy chief of naval operations when I went out and took the command of the Pacific Fleet was not an advocate of Red Cell, and he would fall in the category of a politically correct leader today. And the first guy he took out of the Red Cell group was the lawyer.
Oh.
Next exercise they went on, they got in a little difficulty as somebody was going to test their metal, and they took this guy and shoved his head in the toilet, and that didn't go over so well with some people.
Well, again,
I can't picture that happening.
again, for the listeners and the viewers, we're talking about not just SEALs. I mean, SEALs are the elite, one of the elite fighting forces in the United States, which means in the world. But now to go from the SEAL level, which is extremely difficult to get to that, to get to Tier 1 as a SEAL Team 6 operator requires years of combat experience, operational ability, and then that just means you can apply. Now you have to make it at that level. So the Admiral's talking about a group of about 20 SEAL Team 6 operators, each of which could handle a small, Central American country by themselves. This lawyer, think about this lawyer. He's a nice guy. He went to law school. He joins the Navy. He's looking for a good career. And you stick him in with 20 of America. And these guys.
Talk about your Type A personality.
Yeah. And they're led by Dick Marcinko. And their job is to go against the United States facilities. This poor lawyer, I could just see, how these guys said, you can go on and on and on. This poor lawyer, my God, that's funny. But let me tell you, that exercise was so critically important in those days to exploit the vulnerabilities. I'm sure you had to write up the necessary results and recommendations.
Oh, yes.
Did the powers that be say, hey, thanks, we're going to make these changes, or what happened historically?
Well, what happened once I went out to the Pacific Fleet and John Lehman left as Secretary of the Navy, it was slowly but surely forced to close down.
Yeah. And that demonstrates some of the
problems that we are experiencing
today, exactly. And getting into your article that you wrote last week regarding Benghazi. Well, tell the folks what you're doing now.
I do have one question before you get to Benghazi.
All right, before we do that, Admiral, tell the folks about your consulting firm, what you're doing now.
Well, we do international security, operate port security. We have some special programs with Operation Respond, which develops it as a unique software that when you have a hazmat incident, this takes that first 19-year-old first responder. All he has to do is hit his little iPhone and it shows him if it's this type of hazmat incident. It gives them all the instructions in plain English, how to handle it, where the exit and entry routes, the best way to go.
Oh my gosh.
And it's really been a godsend. We've, in fact, Department of Homeland Security, before the 2004 elections, had us do the entire Northeast corridor with a GPS mapping overview on how this software would be applied. And we use it in other ports throughout the world. Actually, all the American railroads basically now are signed up with Operation Respond. Operation Respond is the only organization that is allowed into the American railroads databases, which they hold very close, very secure. So it gives you some feel for the regard that they have for the people that we have involved.
Beautiful. Well, folks, it's the bottom of the hour, 5:30 on the East Coast. Tom Trento with Admiral James Ace Lyons on, and we're walking through some naval history, fascinating naval history. We're going to segue to the situation today. And Admiral Lyons has, I think you were in for 36 years, right, sir?
right, commissioned, and 4 years at the Naval Academy, and I was in the Merchant Marine and Naval Reserve before that. I went in 1945 and retired at the end of '87.
And when he retired, he didn't go play golf. Okay, maybe he played a little bit of golf, but he's still deeply involved. Almost he's 20-something years in national security, global security. And when you're that deeply involved in the United States military, you have connections, folks, around the world. So you're listening right now to one of America's premier warriors, and somebody you need to listen to as he's writing and speaking and doing the TV shows, particularly on the failures of this administration when it comes to national security issues. So you're on TrentoVision.tv and WNN 1470 with Tom Trento on the bottom of the hour. Mark, hang on. CJ had a question, and then we'll go to Mark.
Well, I just want to say he's not just some ordinary pencil-pushing admiral. He was the commander. He was the admiral of the Pacific Fleet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Coming from a Navy guy.
Right. I'm just letting you know. I mean,
this is big stuff.
This is big stuff.
Okay. CJ, you had a thought?
Yeah, I just was curious where you were and what you were doing in 1979 when our embassy was taken over in Tehran, because I was just reading an article this morning about the celebrations they had in Tehran over the weekend to celebrate the 33rd anniversary of the taking of our embassy there, and how they're chanting "Death to America," and there's so many similarities with the political crisis from Benghazi compared to the political crisis that we had in Iran.
Well, at that time, I was the director of political and military affairs for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And when they took over our embassy, the chairman called me up, and he said, "What can we do?" I said, "I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take Carg Island with our SEAL Team Special Forces." You could walk Carg Island, for those that don't know, was the main oil exporting depot. It's an island off the coast up in the northern Persian Gulf, and we could have walked in, taken it, and I was going to mine that place with explosives and so on. And the idea would be you got 24 hours to get out of our embassy, or your oil depot is toast. I know Brzezinski brought it up to Carter, who promptly rejected it out of hand. Had we done that, we would have turned the Khomeini regime upside down and fired a very telling shot across the bow. Our failure to do that then, and in subsequent events, such as why we did not respond to our Marine barracks blow-up, factors that we're still living with today.
Well, you actually had a really quick and dirty plan right after the Marine Corps barracks, did you not? And back in '83.
Well, on the Marine Corps barracks one, Casey had called me out to Langley. I was the deputy chief then, and said, if we found out who did it, would I make up the plans to take him out? I said, of course. Fast story forward. They found out. We made up the plans. We had the planes loaded. I had briefed the chairman, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Caspar Weinberger, who was the Secretary of Defense, and at the key meeting, Weinberger told Reagan that he still thought they were Lebanese army troops in those Sheikh Abdullah barracks, which was above Baalbek, which was totally false. We had operators in there with pictures. We had everything. And, of course, Casey had just come back from a trip that day, and wasn't up to speed. And the president said, well, you guys go back and sort it out. And so I had to download the planes. He sorted it out. Lo and behold, no Lebanese army troops in this barracks. And this time, Weinberger threw a lot of other dust and so forth in the air, and we never could get the authority to strike.
And this is Hezbollah, right?
Another key factor where we could have changed the course of history. We were going to totally wipe out the Islamic Amal, which is the forerunner to Hezbollah. and that Sheikh Abdullah barracks was going to look like a plowed cornfield in Indiana.
Wow.
So in essence, we could have gotten rid of Hezbollah right at the beginning, right in the get-go.
Right at the beginning.
And wow.
And delivered a message.
And say, yeah.
Well, think about the
strong horse, weak
Iranian
horse.
regime.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Missed opportunities.
Actually, and it's worse than that.
It's the source of evil.
We were supposed to do a combined strike with the French. You may not recall that. But President Reagan approved the combined strike with the French. I had, in the words of our carrier strike group commander over there at the time, Jerry Tuttle, he said from his standpoint it would have been a chip shot. We would have been in and out of there in a minute and a half. And when President Reagan approved the combined strike with the French, Weinberger would not issue the orders. He should have been immediately fired, but he used the kitchen cabinet connection and was able to get through that incident. Unfortunately, President Reagan was ill-served by a key member of his cabinet.
It's strange that they would be so tough on the Soviet Union and so soft elsewhere.
Do you think it was just a lack of knowledge of the Islamic doctrine and Islamic threat doctrine, and they just saw them as allies who had oil and things like that? It was just appeasement processes, or was it just something else?
No, I didn't catch that, Tom.
I said, was it just an appeasement?
That's Mark talking.
Was it just an appeasement ideology that was going on back there? They didn't have.
Well, no. I think it was something much deeper than that. Either Prince Bandar or either some connection from his Bechtel, prior connections in Bechtel, whatever it was.
So Saudi Arabia?
Something deeper than appears on the surface, not any appeasement type of thing. That wasn't in the cards.
Okay.
He was
But
the
it was
ambassador
something
from
else,
Saudi
and
Arabia?
It bothered me to this day.
Okay. Yeah, the Saudi connection in there, and Bechtel.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that was George Shultz in Bechtel, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Admiral, in your article dated a couple of days ago, 28th,
Right.
in the Washington Times, your opening sentence reads, "There is an urgent need for full disclosure of what has become the Benghazi betrayal and cover-up." What did you mean by that?
Well, Tom, let me tell you. This terrorist act should not have come as a surprise to anybody. You will recall that in the summer, this past summer, the UK and the Red Cross, because of the unstable security situation in eastern Libya, particularly Benghazi, they pulled out. Furthermore, on the 16th of August, the consulate sent a message into the Department of State and said, we cannot defend this consulate if we get a coordinated attack. Furthermore, they identified 10 Islamic militias, well-armed, affiliated with Al-Qaeda, that were running wild in Benghazi, in eastern Libya. They also highlighted the fact that that they wanted to consolidate the consulate mission and move it over to the annex. That never happened. The ambassador wanted to keep a 16-man security team that was in Libya, and he wanted it extended. That was denied.
Now, all of this is long before September 11th, correct?
Yeah, this was in a 16 August cable to the Department of State.
Okay, at least a month before, just about a month before, okay?
Yeah. So, and then as we move forward to the day of the attack, we know that the Blue Mountain security manager. This is the one the Department of State contracted with to provide the security for the consulate. He is the one that went out and got the 17 February Martyrs Brigade to provide the security for the consulate. That is mind-boggling in itself,
Right.
since they were closely affiliated with the Ansar al-Sharia terrorist group that actually carried out the attack. And the day of the attack, that afternoon, that security manager said, hey, there's something wrong. Something's not right. And he went out on his 2 radios and his cell phones and issued an alert. And apparently there was a fallout between him and the February 17th Martyrs Brigade. Shortly after those alerts went out, he gets on a plane and flies out of Benghazi. 3 hours before the actual attack, we now know that roadblocks and checkpoints were being set up around the consulate by the Ansar al-Sharia group. Keep in mind that the Turkish consul general, en route to the consulate for his 7:30 meeting with the ambassador, had to go through those roadblocks and checkpoints. Now, is somebody going to tell me that he never mentioned this to Ambassador Stevens?
Oh, by the way, I got frisked on my way over.
Yeah. It's a bunch of guys out there with AKs,
And
Ambassador. Yeah.
if he didn't mention it to him, it certainly leads one to the conclusion he was involved.
Yes.
And the bigger question is, Ambassador Stevens feared for his safety. Why did he have to be in that consulate on the night of 9/11 to meet with the Turkish consul general? That nobody's answered that question.
No, that makes.
You know that Ambassador Stevens was involved in the transfer of military equipment to the opposition, Al-Qaeda opposition in Syria. We know, according to Egyptian security sources, he was involved in recruiting jihadis for transfer to the opposition in Syria fighting the Assad regime. You have to ask yourself, knowing the background on Iran, did they have a hand in this debacle as well?
Yeah, I asked Claire that.
Yeah, for our listening and viewing audience, we're with Admiral James Ace Lyons, who is a legendary admiral in the United States Navy, and he's talking specifically about the Benghazi situation. Admiral, we have been beating this thing to a pulp over the past 2 weeks. We've had Claire on, Frank on, John on, Steve on, a lot of the Team B guys, and it's hard for the people to understand. First of all, the mainstream media is not dealing with this, and it's such a critical illustration of the failure of this administration in a preemptive manner to understand the threat of the environment and then to respond to it operationally as it's happening and now as a follow-up to it. But one point that needs to come out is, Ambassador Stevens, God rest his soul, looked like just a nice, regular kind of California guy. But the fact of the matter is, folks, he was in the middle of assisting a country through a revolution, and a country that many of us on Team B2 said should never have been, there should never have been an attack against Gaddafi as bad as he was, because the element after Gaddafi was going to be 10 times worse. We're going to release the jihad from the genie jihad,
yeah,
with 20,000 man
You had
pads.
the Muslim Brotherhood essentially taking over.
Yeah,
Right.
and so he doesn't look like James Bond, this ambassador. He just looks like a regular guy. But he was in the middle of arms shipment and movement
very
and
nasty
working
stuff,
with
yeah.
thugs and all of this.
And the other thing I want to mention, Tom, and that's 16 August cable. They said that those heavily armed militia groups were getting more brazen each day. They were out of control and had no fear of the government because the government had lost total control of eastern Libya.
Wow.
So this was almost like no man's land out there.
Let me ask you this. We're starting to draw down a bit, and I want to. We can't analyze this whole issue, but I want to draw a couple of points for the viewers, for the listeners. Would you comment on the failures of this administration? Right now, we have 1.6 million veterans. 1.6 million veterans in the state of Florida, Admiral. In 2008, 700,000 voted for Barack Obama. And we have been working like crazy, many of us in the state, to awaken these folks and say, look, for the sake of duty, honor, country, Mitt Romney will make a better commander-in-chief. And we just saw, I don't know if you saw the article that came out in the New York Times today with the amount of flag staff officers, admirals, generals for Romney and the number for President Obama. Have you seen that?
Well, you'll find my name on the list.
Yeah.
Okay, you're one of the
500.
No, you're one of the 5 on the Obama side. Is that where I read your name?
You want to get shot?
5 on Obama side. 5. I can't even find your name, Ace, on the 500 side.
Question where you want to go.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I actually have the lister.
Touting how he ended the war in Iraq. What he did was snatch defeat out of victory.
Yep.
He never pressed for the status of forces agreement, which would have kept a residual force in there to ensure that where over 4,000 of our military people paid the ultimate price and the tens of thousands permanently injured, and he threw that away, and we wound up with an Iranian clone puppet prime minister, Maliki. That is unconscionable. In Afghanistan, what his failed counterinsurgency policy, the coin strategy, what they've done, they've instituted restricted rules of engagement. The net effect of that is we're trading our good American military lives in the false hope of winning the hearts and minds of a tribal society. This is crazy. You never do that. Foremost under my commands, foremost was the safety of our personnel. They came first before anything else, and in order to save them, I was not worried about collateral damage. This great sensitivity, we don't want to do this or that because of collateral damage. Well, they had to show the same sensitivity for saving American lives. And what's compounding this thing today with regard to Afghanistan, they've just legalized the Taliban to be able to run for the presidency of Afghanistan in 2014. What are our people over there fighting for? This is crazy.
What we need to, Mark, you want to say something?
Yeah. As far as all the presidents that you've served under and with, how would you rate President Obama, as in comparison to all the other presidents with all your
He's
experience?
made Carter look good.
Oh my gosh.
Admiral, here's what we need you to do. We have a large.
We need you to vote a lot.
A large veteran population in Florida. And if you could take a couple of minutes, we got a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and share your thoughts with the veterans and what they need to do right now at this critically important moment in history. From your heart, from your experience, what is your message to the veterans of Florida regarding voting tomorrow?
Well, as they well know better than anybody else, all the freedoms that we enjoy are the result of the hard-fought battles by our military. And the impact of the Obama administration in the draconian budget cuts to the military is unconscionable. It's devastating, and it undercuts our military power in order to protect this great nation of ours. And even in the words of the current Secretary of Defense, these cuts will be devastating. He has done nothing to resolve the issues. You know, can you imagine a president where an ongoing battle is going on at our consulate in Benghazi, and he's listening to the cries for help and assistance and basically does nothing? And let me just say, we had resources in theater. We had F-16 aircraft which could have been flown over in full afterburner, and that would have scattered the initial crowd. We had a 130-man Marine recon team sitting in Sigonella under the command of a sergeant major and a lieutenant colonel, both of which had over 40 years of background service. They were armed, equipped, ready to go. They could have been in Benghazi in 2 hours. They never got the orders to deploy. Instead, what happened? The president went to bed so he'd be well rested for his fundraiser in Las Vegas the next day. And the director of CIA went to a movie. Does that tell you everything you need to know?
Yeah, sadly.
Actually, it calls into question the president's fitness to be commander-in-chief of this great military of ours.
Okay. Well, folks, particularly those of you who have worn the uniform, those of you who have taken that oath to defend this great country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and sadly sometimes an administration needs to be defended against when it capitulates and by design or even by default moves in a direction that becomes deleterious, dangerous, deadly to Americans. As the Admiral has said, to have an extended battle of over 7 hours and have assets capable close by, and to go to the movies or to prepare to go to Las Vegas instead of being on top of the issue. Protecting men, as the Admiral said, is the highest and first calling of those in leadership. It necessitates, folks, a change of administration, and we do that bloodlessly in the United States of America. We do it at the ballot box, and you've heard the Admiral, you've looked at the data. Your choice tomorrow. We're all pushing very hard for Mitt Romney to become the commander-in-chief. The world doesn't turn better overnight, but the world moves in a direction where good men and women who are in the military now, leaders and people on the ground, have a capability to restore the exceptionalism, strength, and might of this country that has been devastated, absolutely devastated over the past 4 years. Admiral James Ace Lyons, it's a privilege and an honor to have you on the show, sir. We thank you for
sir.
For your
deep honor to have you with us.
It's been my pleasure, Tom, and best of luck to all your listeners. I know they will do the right thing.
Okay, thanks, and
Thank you.
We will be in touch, and whenever you need an outlet to get something off your chest, we're here for you, sir, okay?
Yes, we would like the Benghazi
Story
updates.
in detail,
yes.
Yeah, we'll do that. All right, you take care.
right.
Thank you very much. Folks, Admiral James Ace Lyons, as I said, a legend, literally a legend, American legend in naval history, naval warfare. And we're going to wind things up here and find our way out. And we will see you tomorrow, our special show, our Election Day show. We got all kinds of stuff crazy stuff planned for you. Reports from all over the world, from California, from Israel, from Egypt, from
France.
every place, from France. Tom Trento signing off for the crew. See you now. Bye-bye.